20% of new businesses fail within the first 2 years. 45% of businesses don't survive year 5. 65% of new businesses don't make it past the 10th year. And 75% of new American startups don't make it to the 15-year mark. Why do you think this happens? Because people burn away way too many resources before they ever ask themselves the difficult question of whether their business is an asset or a liability. The best businesses have clear productization, minimal overhead, systematic operations, and most importantly, profit. I say this because there's so many people watching these videos that are insistent on jumping deep into the e-commerce world. And that's fantastic, but it's a jungle out here. The days of people getting these multiples of revenue, especially in the current climate, are gone. You know, the dream of growing at all costs, getting venture capital money or whatever, bleeding revenue on the first sale and trying to make your money back after a certain period of time in order to grow and create such a valuable asset that somebody will come along and purchase you. It's not what it used to be. E-commerce is challenging. You not only need a fantastic product that has product market fit and serves a particular audience, you also need to have the cash to buy this inventory. You need to have the cash to spend money on advertising and hopefully profitable advertising. You need to have the cash to buy more inventory as you sell the inventory you already have and make sure you're refilling it before you actually run out of stock. You also need to have the cash flow to hire the right people to run the business. Otherwise, in the beginning, you're going to be wearing 100 different hats. Now, I say all these things. I'm not trying to say that e-commerce is a difficult business to get. I'm not saying it's an impossible business to jump into. I'm just saying that if this was my first business, there's basically 2 other types of businesses I would probably start with, and then a third one if I had a pretty good idea of what I was doing. So the first thing that I would probably do is I would figure out some kind of productized agency or productized service. And what I mean by productized is I have a very specific offering. The sales guys can't go and add a bunch of extra things because that means that my team has to go above and beyond and spend extra resources to try to deliver and make everybody happy. So if you read the book Built to Sell, which if you haven't, I definitely recommend checking out. Basically, the concept is you put together a very specific offer that you can productize. What I mean by productize is you have these very specific steps on how to create the output or the desired output for the customer. You then systemize the delivery of this. So not only the purchase, but what happens between the customer giving you money, gathering the information you need to fulfill on whatever it is that you've promised, having your team or you follow those steps to a T, create the output, have the output delivered to the customer, get their feedback, their approval, and then either move on to the next sale with a happy customer and repeat the process over and over again. Well, there's not really an or. That's kind of the process. So a productized service with very systematic operations where we are going to consistently deliver the same output based on the inputs from the person buying the service. So that's the first thing that I would potentially do. I know it's very cryptic. It's very cryptic, but I mean it could be anything from creating long form funny videos for an e-commerce brand, or maybe it's helping business coaches make short form video, or maybe it's ghostwriting for Twitter or LinkedIn. There's so many different things that you can deliver. But the key to this is just making it very productized and not making it bespoke for each person that you're dealing with. That way, when you eventually decide, I'm done doing this, provided there's profit in the business, which is one of the things that I mentioned earlier that's going to determine whether your business is an asset or a liability, is you've built a business that you can give to somebody else and they can operate it. And if there's no positive cash flow, if there's no profit, somebody else is going to have very little interest in taking over and buying this business from you. So that's the first thing. A productized service, I think, is a fantastic way for somebody to get started in business. I think e-commerce is definitely more challenging, but if you're really gung-ho on jumping into e-commerce, a great place to get your feet wet is the e-commerce drop shipping world. And the reason why it's a great place to start is because you don't have to hold all this inventory. You don't have to take as many risks to get the business going. You can pick a couple of products. You can build the creative foundation of your brand. So like the landing pages or the PDPs, the copy, create some videos around it by just ordering one unit. Get an agreement with whoever is shipping these products, ideally somebody in North America, because the experience for somebody buying a product that's coming from China, it's a pretty long delay in actually getting the item. So you're gonna have difficulty selling them things again in the future. But getting that product, and then making sure that this isn't just a one and done product. I personally like consumables, but if the product is not a consumable, are there other high affinity products that live around the product that you're trying to sell, so that in the event that it does well, you're able to sell additional things to potential new customers as you build brand equity. And working with somebody who is able to ship for you in North America is it's a great starting point, because if you can prove product market fit off a dropshipping product, it's a lot easier for you to go and say, hey, let me figure out, I'm going to go and make something just like this, and I'm going to build a brand around this. But I validated the idea with dropshipping. You could probably do it with affiliate marketing as well, except you're not building any brand equity, especially if you're just promoting somebody else's stuff. The third thing, if you're really set on jumping into e-commerce full force, for me, if I was jumping back into product, or if I was starting from scratch, I would be choosing something, again, productized, that's consumable. I don't want to have a ton of different SKUs, especially in the beginning. SKU proliferation, which means having a whole bunch of SKUs, adds complexity to your business. If you change packaging or something for one SKU, you got to do it for all these different SKUs. It just makes things difficult. So if I absolutely had to get back into e-commerce and wanted to choose something that I thought could go the long term, or maybe you validated with some drop shipping, but is a single 1 to 2 SKUs. I know I said single there, but 1 to 2 SKUs that are very productized, are simple, and ideally consumable, so I can get people on subscription. Obviously, True Earth was that type of product 5 years ago when we launched it, and it did tremendously well. We were very new to the market. Obviously, if you're just taking a commodity and introducing it to the market, you have to either have like a really interesting spin on why this is new and different, or you need to segment an existing audience out from a category. Like I'll give you an example. I think I've mentioned this in other videos. Is like, let's just say we had an electrolyte or sports drink mix for golfers. That would be like, you can go and completely create all your creative around golfing, and you can tie the electrolyte benefits to things in golf. You also have the future potential to sell your products in golf stores. So again, if you don't have something very novel that's new and different, the alternative here is to go and create a segment. So you look at the total addressable market for electrolyte beverages. I'm sure it's massive. I have no idea what the TAM is. And we want to chop it down to like our serviceable addressable market, which is the people that we can reach in a certain area. So let's just say North America, I bet you it's 200 million people are probably the serviceable addressable market in the USA. And then we want to cut it down to like golfers. We want to get all the golfers. So let's just say that's like 30 million people. So we now know that we have 30 million people that we can hyper focus our product around, and we can become their electrolyte choice because of what they're into. So I've kind of given you what I would do if I was starting from scratch again, but things you need to consider if you're creating a business. The whole idea of this video is your business a liability or is it an asset? And a liability, and I have experience in having liabilities where the business, you're hanging on to a business because you have an emotional attachment to it and you think that you're just one more thing away from making it better. But if you are losing money month over month for an extended period of time and your burn rate is higher than the revenue rate, you're digging yourself a hole. There's going to become a point where you're gonna run out of money, and if that's your own personal debt or you've borrowed money for the business with a personal guarantee, you're going to put yourself in a giant hole. So it's incredibly important if you're trying to build an asset and you don't have endless supplies of cash, that you try to prioritize becoming profitable as soon as you can. You want to lengthen the horizon on your time frame so that you can make decisions that are long-term decisions and not short-term decisions. Short-term decisions often result in you doing things for the immediate benefit that may harm you in the long term. An example would be if you had an e-commerce business always being on sale. It pays right now, but it trains people to only purchase when things are on sale in the future. So you're essentially harvesting all the people that currently need the product in exchange for short-term value and at the expense of long-term value. Sorry, I kind of rambled there for a second, but we want to build assets. If your goal is to eventually sell, you should be looking to build businesses that are efficient, make money, and put money in your jeans. I spent a lot of years focused so hard on growth, and the number of people who are going to have these astronomical exits is very small, especially when you're trying to get like X times revenue, even 1 times revenue actually. But if you don't have EBITDA, if you don't have discretionary earnings, if there's no profit, you're probably going to go into M&A discussions having expectations that your business is worth considerably more than it is. The only way that somebody will take on your business, if you're at a massive loss because you've been growing at the cost of profits, is somebody who, it's basically going to be a strategic buyer, which is somebody who has another business that's aligned with this business, who could potentially benefit from these customers, or by mixing, or has another competitive advantage where, like, that they could potentially get distribution for your product. Anyways, for most people, if you want to exit a business, you're going to get a multiple of your EBITDA or your profits or your discretionary earnings and not your revenue. So make sure that you focus on building something that spits off cash. Because if you want to leave even just from the perspective of like, I'm going to build something, if I have a day job and I want to leave the day job so that I can pursue this, I don't want to leave my day job and not have an income. I don't want to have no profit. So build something that is lean, doesn't have a whole bunch of extra employees that it doesn't need, doesn't have a whole bunch of extra software that it doesn't need. You know, a common practice among some of my friends, Russ, and I think Sean from Ridge, they're both big advocates of canceling your company credit cards every quarter. And what this does is it forces you to review every expense, because everything that you have on renewal now needs to be updated with the current card. And if it has to be updated, you're going to be like, well, we're not using that anymore, so we don't really need that expense. That's just one example of a tactic that you can use to try to keep your company lean. On top of that, you need to know, like, I kind of use this business health checklist to determine, like, is what I'm building, like, there's more than, let me rephrase that. Just because something may be an asset, it could also potentially be a liability. Because just because something's making money, it could be a liability to your mental health. If you hate what you're doing, it could make you miserable. So here's some of the things that I like to look at in terms of like a business health checklist. And this covers everything. And it also gives you opportunities on where you can improve. So first of all, the financial health, like, are we, is our revenue growing? Is our profit growing? Or is the company losing money month over month? Like, if it is, what's the burn rate? How long before, we're not going to have any cash left and we're going to be insolvent? If this is on a downward trajectory and you don't have an easy path to fix it, that's a pretty big liability. The next thing is brand equity. If you're building an asset, how bought in are the people that are using the product, the service, your customers? How likely are they to purchase something else from you after you're done? Are you using ridiculously over-the-top direct response tactics to acquire customers and harming your brand equity before you even have a chance to build it? These things are pretty easy to test. You can try launching a new product or doing an affiliate offer to your list and just see how well bought in the people that you've served are to what you're doing and saying and your values. If that brand equity is strong, that it'll be easy for you to expand your product line and drive up your lifetime value and really leverage what you've been building. If you send out an email to buy a new product and nobody buys it, or very few people buy it, that you've probably got some work to do on your values and how people feel about you and the product that you've built. If you can't sell more things to more people who've already purchased from you, you don't have a very strong brand. Your brand is probably a liability. Scalability is another checklist, an item on my checklist. And this is going to come down to, like, what is the serviceable, addressable market? And that is a segment of the TAM. TAM is total addressable market, which is everybody in the entire world who falls into the need for whatever it is you're selling. So how much of that serviceable addressable market have you acquired? Is there options to either expand the overall serviceable addressable market by either adding new countries, new products that may be catered to adjacent audiences, and also the competition in that space is relevant. So if you've already tapped that market out and you don't have the brand equity to offer different products, your scalability may not be there. The next thing is operational efficiency. So I have papers all over my desk right now. It's kind of a disaster. You can't see it, but it's making me uncomfortable even just sitting here. In a good business, all of your operations, all of your systems are all well documented, and everything kind of flows together like a well-oiled machine. It's like an engine. You turn it on, and when it's healthy, you hear it roar. Everything, there's no like random sounds that shouldn't be there. It's smooth. if you have like, if every single process is done in a different manner, or you're not using the same tools to communicate, you're not, I can't even think of a great example right now, but there's so many things when you're dealing with a business that can create efficiencies. Sometimes it's like one app communicating to the next app and updating the data there so that somebody doesn't have to manually go in and do it. A lot of this can be done through automation or by having like a really good operations person. But streamlining this is key to having it, to building a quality asset. And the good news is if this is a liability for your business, it's not, you can probably get considerable lift in the overall performance of your business just by going in and fixing up some of the operational challenges or inefficiencies. Go in, just start at the top, look at where the biggest problems lie or where the biggest inefficiencies lie, figure out how long each thing takes, and look for particular tasks that, wow, that takes way longer than I think it should, and then dive into the actual process. Not super complicated. I know it probably is when you're wearing 100 different hats. I've got 2 more things on this list. The next one's adaptability. And this is like, are you able to pivot? Are you able to change who you're potentially servicing, where you're selling? In the event that say Facebook ads get too expensive for you to operate, are you able to go and push more heavily on, say, Amazon? Or are you able to say like, okay, well, you know what, we're primarily D2C, but it looks like the opportunity in retail may be better for us. Let's go and pursue that more aggressively and maybe reduce our resources that we're putting towards these other channels. So being adaptable, a good example of something that wouldn't be adaptable would be, say, an info product that's completely dependent on YouTube and Facebook. In the event that both of those channels go down, outside of maybe doing aggressive organic marketing a la Alex Hormozy, you're probably going to struggle. You're going to have to increase the price and do a number of other things to try to squeak your way out of that hole, because digital products, generally, you're not going to be able to go and sell them in retail. So is the business adaptable? And then the final thing on here, and a lot of people take this one for granted because there's so much this hustle 10x culture, but like personal fulfillment. Are you passionate about what you're doing here, or are you just trying to make a buck? Because if you don't, listen, you're going to have to do things you don't love in your life. But if you're not passionate about the particular business that you're trying to build right now, there's going to come a point in time where you're going to be like, all right, this is just not, the juice is not worth the squeeze. And this is stressing me out way too much. I don't love it. I don't love the business. It's a liability. I need to move on to something different. That one thing is such a huge liability, because you're doing all of this. You're generally doing all this for a better life, to create a better life, to have more autonomy, to have more freedom. And if you get stuck working on something that's draining your lifeblood from you and making you like a miserable husband or wife, or miserable child, miserable to yourself, you need to take very close attention to this particular piece in this checklist, because personal fulfillment, if not in check, this business can ruin your life. There's many stories of people having to work so many hours on their business that they spend no time with their family, and then they wind up with no families. So make sure you consider that. What else? The cadence of which you track your business is also incredibly important. I think it's important to have a daily KPI document where you list out the important metrics in your business. This can be the revenue. This can be like lead sales, some sort of survey happiness factor on your customers. I'm not going to tell you exactly what should be on your KPI dashboard, but if certain metrics, you should have baseline scores that are acceptable for each of these metrics or targets. And then in the event that you hit a certain period or a certain amount of days in a row where these numbers aren't green, they aren't red, you're not hitting the baselines, then you should be addressing that piece of the business. What's going on? What's changed from the last few weeks? It's very important. And I don't really like these numbers being automated because it's easy to stop looking at the dashboard when the numbers exist. When you have to put the numbers in, when you have to go and find them and track them down and write them in the sheet, it forces you to actually get a bird's eye view of what's happening on each key metric in your business. And at the minimum, I would be doing this once a week. I think it's a great idea to do it daily. Take 15 minutes in the morning, go through, fill out the sheet, make sure you know what's going on. And you can kind of get a dashboard or like a driver's windshield view of what's working well in my business and where could we probably spend some more resources to improve. And it gives you an idea if things are going downhill or uphill. And obviously those are two of the most important things in a business. Listen, I want this for you. I want this for me. I want this for anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur, that has dreamed about doing great things for, most of or all of their life. And I just want you to think about the fact how important it is that your business is cash flow positive, especially your first one. I want you to make sure that you put cash reserves away and you don't overspend and buy things or burn cash or resources on unnecessary purchases that aren't actually going to move your business forward. And I want you to make sure that you're happy and you're passionate about what you're doing, because it's the foundation of why you started building a business in the first place.